Hey, this is Greg from GMH Audio, and I want to show you my new plugin called Wave Destroyer. It's available as a free download at gmhaudio.com, so go check it out. Link will be in the description. So this is a distortion plugin with a bunch of tweakability, and I'm just going to show you a couple cool uses for it that I like on a few just example tracks. So first I'm going to show on drums. This is really cool on drums for mangling and distorting them. This is the raw drum track I have. That was with the plugin in bypass. I'm going to unbypass it, and this is the default setting. So already we have a cool distorted drum sound. Obviously, we got this big drive knob in the middle if you want more or less distortion. And this view up here gives you a dynamic view of what you're doing to the wave shape by distorting it more. We have 3 different modes for different amounts of distortion. Saturate is like soft clipping. It won't get that extreme. Just a subtle little bit of saturation. Distort is what you heard before, and destroy is like all-out fuzz madness. And they kind of pick up where each other leave off, so if you aren't getting quite enough out of distort, you could step it up to destroy on the low end, and it gives you a really wide range of usable gains that's still nice and tweakable with this big knob. So one of the cool, unique things about this is these EQs. There's a pre and post EQ. So that allows you to shape the frequency spectrum of the sound both before and after it gets distorted. So in this case, the kick drum's really blowing out the distortion. So what we can actually do is we could cut some low end. This is a low shelf filter. And with less low end going into the distortion, that kick drum will be less distorted. Obviously now we've lost some low end overall, so we can then make that back up on the post EQ by adding some low end back in. So now you have cool driven drums, but with a clean low end. In order to make that kind of thing easy, I'll reset these both back to 0. We have this EQ link, and that links the pre and post opposite. So if I turn this up, this gets turned down. If I turn this down, this gets turned up. So I could simultaneously turn down the low end going into the distortion and make it back up in an equal amount after it gets distorted to affect the character of the distortion without drastically changing the frequency response. And I could go the opposite. I could blow out the distortion on the low end, generating a ton of harmonics, but then actually cut the actual lows afterwards. Then we have a ton of distortion generated off that kick drum, but not an actual amount of low end in the signal. So that offers a lot of flexibility. It works the same for the high band and the mid band. So you can get a lot of flexibility with that. This bias knob is really cool for drums especially. It lets you get a kind of gated fuzz tone. Let me show you how that might work on something like this. You get this spurty kind of sound where only the hits are really coming through the distortion and everything else is gated back out. Let's even do that more extreme on the destroy mode. Now let's push some extra low end into this for a really destructive kick drum sound. So that's really cool and unique, but maybe that's not super usable. we can go over here, and with the mix knob, we could actually dial in the dry signal and blend this distorted signal into that. So if we go all the way to 0, we now have the raw drum track again. And I'll blend in this distortion sound. Now I have that spurty, broken distortion sound, but we still have the natural drums in there driving the track. So that's a really cool way to use this plugin on drums. I'm going to go over to a guitar track now. Here we have a little guitar lead. This is a DI track, and I'm just running it through this amp sim, which is set clean. Then I've got Wave Destroyer before the amp acting as the distortion pedal. So here's that with its default settings. Because of the flexibility of this, you could use it to kind of emulate what different types of guitar distortion pedals might do. So if I want to use this for an overdrive, maybe something in the Tube Screamer family, I'm going to use the low cut in the pre-EQ and cut everything below about 200, maybe even cut a bunch of lows here, or a little bit. Now I'm going to boost up some mid-range, and maybe a tiny bit of high-end too. And maybe even blend in a bit of the clean signal back in, and then take some more lows out, but put some more clean lows in on the post. So there's more of an overdrive. Obviously we can take that further, turn up the gain, and get more of a distortion. Now, if we want something that I think is a really cool sound, which is a spurty, broken kind of fuzz sound, we could get that with the bias control doing the same kind of gated effect. First, I'm going to set up a really extreme fuzz, cranking the drive on the destroy setting. And I'm going to reset the EQ for now. Here's what that sounds like. Dial that back a tad. Now I'm going to blow out the low end into it for a really fuzzed out tone. Maybe some highs too. Scoop it before the fuzz. That's cool. Now let's dial in the bias to get it spurting out. Asymmetry works similar to bias, but in a slightly different way, and they kind of interact with each other. So I'm going to tweak that now too. I'm going to turn up the input gain a little bit to drive it even harder. Drive a mid-range resonance in there and dial that in for kind of a cocked wah kind of vibe. There you have a spurty, broken fuzz sound with Wave Destroyer just in the front end of an amp sim. Anyway, that's just a few of the uses and some ways you can use the controls. There's a ton of other uses for this plugin. It's really flexible. So let me know if you find anything cool that you like to use this for. Again, this is available for download, and the link will be in the description.